best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine? You think you've seen the sun.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Adam.
And today we're going to do a little bit of speculation about Star Trek Beyond. Now I don't know how much there really is to guess about this movie or the franchise moving forward. It looks like we're probably going to get another one after this, depending on how well it does. Like, they could scrap it, but they've already started talking about a 4. So there may be a little bit of speculation we can do about even where we might continue to take this.
Right.
My perspective on this whole thing is totally different from where it was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because we have another, what is almost certain to be in canon, in prime canon, Star Trek thing that's about to start next year that I'm super excited about. Harder to get worked up about whether or not this is going to be any good anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's how I'm just like, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, precisely. And it was depressing when
that was
it's
the only thing.
all we had.
Yeah.
Was this new franchise. Really cool to have options and alternatives.
Right.
And I don't know about you, I have no qualms with having both of these franchises going on simultaneously.
Right.
I mean, no qualms with that at all. I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Because that way, I mean, like Hollywood and, the people making Star Trek can really have their cake and eat it, too.
Mm-hmm.
On television, it makes so much more sense to have traditional classic Star Trek.
Right.
Because it's cheaper.
Right.
And because it makes more sense for a serialized week-to-week kind of narrative.
Right.
And on film, as much as I would much prefer to have something that is more idea-driven and real science fiction, you can't deny how well Star Trek 09 did at the box office.
I think that's just not where we are as much today. I don't know why with some of these blockbusters and stuff. I think that we have, they have to adapt to the times and stuff, and I think that you can't just make it for the fans or make it a specific way. They have to recoup the amount of money they've invested in the movie, because it's a lot more than to do a TV show and stuff weekly.
Yeah, it's interesting the disconnect that you're seeing in science fiction things specifically right now, because we are seeing some pretty intelligent sci-fi stuff happening on television, and especially on streaming services.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror. That thing is brilliant.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, like there is an audience for that stuff, clearly. That was immensely popular. We're going to get an American version of it.
Yeah.
And so there is an audience for smarter, idea-driven Star Trek. And I also like to remind people that Star Trek was always, after the Cage pilot, a thing that Roddenberry had to compromise on and become more of an action thing than it was anyway, right? Like, it was always a thing that was intended for, or at least always, in order to get it on TV. From the Man Trap forward, it was always... It was always a thing that was intended for mass consumption.
Right. It was never this pure thing that Roddenberry just burst forth upon the world. It was that he had to, he always had to make compromises. You always have to, when you're collaborating with a lot of people, or when you have to deal with network and money, the economics of television and stuff, that I think people forget that sometimes when they talk about it needs to be pure to Gene Roddenberry's vision and stuff.
Well, and also, on the other side, folks that didn't like don't like Star Trek or didn't like it until 09, and I don't know how many people only like those movies. I talked to a lot of people that watched 09 and then went back to original series and seemed to, because they enjoyed that movie, suddenly, okay, now I like Star Trek, or now I get Star Trek. It was really interesting, some of the people that I've talked to that had that experience with it. But what I was going to say is, on the other side, you've got people that think that Star Trek is has always been this super cerebral, really boring talky thing.
Yeah.
And that it was never action driven.
I don't understand how it got this reputation and stuff, because in the 90s, Star Trek The Next Generation was one of the most successful shows on television.
It was the number one drama for a while, yeah.
And I don't understand, how...
That was what families were sitting down after dinner and watching.
So I don't know somewhere along the line it got this, thing where it got like a stigma almost, where people are like, oh, I don't want to, Star Trek, that's not for me and stuff, or
right,
I'm not interested in that.
And so I think we're about to enter an era especially if this new show is popular and catches on. I mean, you're seeing the powerhouses they're adding on the writing staff right now. We just got Joe Menosky. I mean, like, that's fantastic what they're doing right now. He wrote Darmok. Like, that's really exciting. And so we're about to be in a place where we can have it both ways. And I think what you're likely to see are some folks that go into that show a little trepidatious, thinking, okay, it's probably, from what we understand right now, it's going to bridge some gaps, and it might seem like it's just for classic Star Trek fans, and by classic I just mean everything before '09. Right. Original canon Star Trek fans that know everything already, and that they won't be able to get in and look at it. But once they get there, I think that it will be a thing that will appeal to a broad audience.
I think it's going to be like Doctor Who when it came back. I think, but that's still like within its canon. It never made like compromises as far as jettisoning what came before and stuff.
Yeah.
And it still was able to become more popular, at least here in the United States, and it ever was.
It helps that it is so loose with its science that it doesn't give you that kind of elitist thing that like pushes people away because it's only for like smart nerds that are always looking at journals and stuff, which is the reputation that Star Trek has for some people. And Vince always says that it kind of that Doctor Who kind of borders on science fantasy. Yeah. And I think he's right about that.
Yeah, but I also think that sometimes Star Trek does.
Often.
Star Trek does a good job of pretending, but how much stuff did they make up on Voyager to get out of situations?
And there's a difference between having some technobabble like sometimes technobabble on TNG would sound like nonsense, but then some of those words for the technology that they had invented for that show kind of meant things. Right. If you like went and looked at supplementary material. Right. Not that you ought to necessarily, but then you get to Voyager and there's a lot of just making up science.
Right. How many particles do they just make up out of nowhere? Like, I mean, there's real things like tachyons. Those are real things, but you get to a certain point, I think they started really...
It gets lazy, and it gets hilarious. Yeah. Sure. And then you get to Enterprise, and we have things built into the show like that. Like, polarizing the hull plating doesn't sound like it means anything to me.
Yeah, that sounds like something from old Doctor Who.
Yeah, and like if you pull... Josh and I have talked about this. Josh is a guy in our Star Trek club that's been with me forever. If you polarize it, is that really going to... like that's polarizing is about magnetism, right? Like is that really going to stop like explosive materials from blowing through your hull?
I don't know. Was it supposed to deflect energy weapons or like
I don't know.
Anything? I don't really know what it did.
It's just a word they used that sounds sciencey. To your point. Right. So anyway, this is a long preamble, and it was going to be hard not to talk a little bit about the new show, just in again how it affects our anticipation for this movie. But I just wanted to bring some of that stuff up to say that first and foremost, before we get into Beyond, I am not really like that worried about it, even if it's terrible. It's cool we have this like dictionary definition of alternate. It's an alternate history. It's an alternate canon. It's a different timeline. So cool that we can have both of those going on at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitively finally say that's an alternate timeline and not one that paved over.
Right. Yeah, I was just... I'm skeptical of how good it's going to be, though, just because it feels like they really have not marketed it very much. And I don't know why. Is it just because Captain America came out and they were trying to avoid competing with trying to market against that movie, or is it
we've still got
like a month
and a half.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. I also think that the marketing that they were doing early on was poor, and then they got wise, and now it's better.
Okay.
It's a little late, but I don't mind that, really. With as much genre stuff, be it superhero stuff or sci-fi things, big properties, you got Warcraft coming out next weekend, made by a director that makes really good science fiction films. I think that that it might have been smart to not get it in front of people real hard until now. And I'm starting to see a lot more of stuff about it around, and people are already starting to get a lot less, like, so people seem more interested in it than they were with that first trailer with the Beastie Boys song. And they see, which like I was afraid that was just going to tank the whole thing. Okay, so we did a movie that was Star Trek's greatest hits. We did a movie that was Wrath of Khan again, and now we're going to do a movie that's just Star Trek 09's greatest hits.
Yeah.
Okay, and if they hadn't put out the trailer they put out a few weeks ago, they'd be in big trouble.
Right.
But people seem to be kind of turning around on it a little bit, and I think it's going to do better than I would have anticipated. I also think that disappointment with Star Trek Into Darkness is inevitably going to hurt it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it had the... Yeah, but that movie had a lot of buzz going into... Star Trek Into Darkness did, and this one, I feel like, doesn't have as much because of that.
I think it has the potential...
cooled down because of that fan reaction to that movie.
Well, there were 4 years in between the first two. Mm-hmm. There's only 3 in between here, and that still is
a lot of time.
A good amount, given that so often, like, we just had the Ninja Turtle sequel. That was only 2 years after the last one. X-Men Apocalypse was only 2 years after Days of Future Past. So like that maybe affects it a little bit. Where 4 years people were really jonesing for Star Trek, especially because again it's the only thing we have for Star Trek right now. But yeah, Darkness. Doesn't have a great reputation.
Right.
I think this could be a sleeper hit. I think it could be a thing that people are trepidatious about. Opening weekend doesn't have a huge turnout, and then if the reviews are good, people will go see it. But it's got to be good.
Right.
It's got to not be panned.
Right.
If it does what Batman vs Superman did. Or if it has like the 20 or 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's going to have real problems, obviously, because it's not going to get that huge gross that opening weekend.
Right.
I don't see it having a huge turnout for first weekend. I think it could be a thing that lingers for 3 or 4 weeks.
And then,
if people are talking about it.
Right.
Yeah. I also think that it's just a tough year to put out a thing like that.
Mm-hmm. There's so much other
competing
properties.
It's a big year.
Right.
Yeah. So that'll be it'll be interesting to see how well it does. Let's talk about what we think it's going to look like. You know what? Advertising again for just a second. Have you looked at the posters?
I've seen a few of them. I've seen like
Why are we advertising it with motion picture iconography? Did you see that one?
I have not seen that one.
The pasty white alien chick with the tattoos, because everybody's got to have tattoos in this universe.
I guess so.
They did a motion picture throwback where wish I had it in front of me. They did a motion picture throwback where she's Ilea.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
I don't know that I would have done that. And it's your third movie.
Nobody liked that movie. Why would they do that?
I guess just because it's a classic poster.
I guess.
And to your point, maybe part of it is people that aren't that aren't super fit. Because the thing is, like it's weird. You have to advertise this stuff to people in the know and people not in the know. So like a lot of the people that will go see those movies don't care about Star Trek before them.
Right.
So some of it might just be it's a cool looking image, and then maybe people don't even know what they're basing on, because it is a eye-catching piece.
Right.
But also I think it's just throwback sells theoretically.
Yeah.
But yeah, weird to do that with motion. I just thought that was funny. But some of those posters looked really super cool, I thought, and they're selling it on bright, vibrant colors. Real
that's
hard.
where I felt like the one that's like beyond, like that, and in the clouds and stuff.
It's real bold and exciting looking. Yeah, it's cool. They should have put some of those out early. Mm-hmm. Like to your point earlier, when they did that teaser, I don't know. They should have sold the whole thing the way they're selling it now, I think.
Right.
So looking at this new trailer and I did a video about that trailer, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much in case you saw that. But looking at that trailer and what we know about the movie, first and foremost, my big question, what do you think about this, is how much repeat of the action formula is this going to be? Like, is it going to feel by the numbers, we've been here and done this already, and like is it going to be the same villain plot we've seen over and over again, not just with these, but with the TNG movies also?
Right. It's hard to say, because it seems like that from the trailer and stuff. I mean, I don't want to say for sure, but with the Kirk riding on a motorcycle and stuff on the alien planet.
How did we get a motorcycle on that planet?
Alien planet there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'm not saying you can't have a motorcycle on a starship. Right. I'm saying, what is the situation?
And didn't the trailer imply heavily that the Enterprise is going to get destroyed? So did they have the motorcycle on an escape pod too? How did they get down there?
The sense I got from the teaser trailer was that the Enterprise gets destroyed early.
Yeah, early in the movie. That's what it seemed like.
And that they're stranded on a planet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it seems.
Especially because you have this alien girl, and I like, by the way, introducing a brand new
character.
A brand new character that we're allied with.
Right.
That I think some people seem to be assuming that she'll be. That they'll do a twist and she'll be the bad guy. I kind of don't think that's what it is. I think she is going to be probably the Ilea of that piece, and that's or like a Savik or something, right. and that's kind of the reason that maybe that is the reason they picked they picked that poster. Maybe that poster actually will end up, after we've seen it, it'll turn out that that foreshadowed more than we would have ever expected. If she is the Ilea of the piece, then we'd have to assume that at some point she gets maybe mind controlled or duplicated, and
sucked up into a
and that by the
beam.
Well, maybe not exactly that, but I'm just saying that she could end up being a tragic character that gets killed off in the film. That could be the reason they used that poster. Yeah. I don't know. That's a possibility. There's a thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But I like introducing a brand new character that maybe won't be any kind of a love interest for Kirk. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
If they just don't even go there, or there's a hint of it and then they don't do that.
Right.
On the other hand, we haven't really done a love interest for Kirk yet, so it could be a really good love story. You could have that also. Yeah. So, I don't know, I could see all kinds of things going. I'm just glad that, it's not a character that they're reinventing. Mm-hmm. Not that I immediately have a problem with that unless we're completely redoing a movie. Mm-hmm. Like we kind of did with Wrath of Khan, right?
Exactly.
And I'm glad that she doesn't seem too much like a derivative character of some other thing. I don't take a look at her and the accent and the role she seems to be playing and immediately think of anybody else in Star Trek. Now, she reminds me of... in the look of that species, she reminds me of a lot of stuff I saw on the Sci-Fi Channel in the 90s. Yeah. Like she looks a lot like characters out of Farscape.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
Stargate. Things like that.
Yeah. What do you think of how they did reshoots, didn't they, in March, and they added a new character?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I try not to. This has been a thing lately with reshoots and people. Immediately getting really, really worked up about it and worried that, oh no, we had to go back and shoot some new scenes. That must mean it's in trouble. Right. It doesn't always mean it's in trouble. And I think a lot of movies have reshoots that we never hear about. Right. I think studios are hilarious for telling us about them. Why even tell us about them?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's because we get into the editing room and there's stuff that didn't turn out right, or we didn't get enough coverage, or we didn't get enough reaction shots, and stuff like that. Christopher Nolan talks about that all the time, where he's like, my biggest problem is I always forget to get reaction shots from people. I never get enough coverage. Right. But then adding a whole new character, that kind of thing can be cause for alarm.
Right.
I wonder what that character is.
I know the actress is the... Did you see the Expanse on the Sci-Fi Channel?
Mm-mm.
I can't think of her name. She was
I am not caught up on new sci-fi TV lately.
She played the Secretary of Defense for the United Nations.
Oh, okay.
Show. She's an Indian actress.
Was that any good?
I remember her. It was very good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Then I'll watch it.
But yeah, I cannot remember her name. I guess she got nominated for an Academy Award for another movie a while back. But they added her. I think she's going to be part exposition and stuff. Maybe that's all. So I don't know if it's she's how major she is or not.
I mean, I'm curious about it structurally. Like, you gotta wait, and I'll get back to the villain in a minute. I'm curious about it structurally because you gotta wonder, like always with these movies, how much of the film are we spending on Earth? You know, the idea is that we're supposed to be exploring again, and I guess the whole point of the movie, from an interview that I just read today with Justin Lin, I guess the whole point of the movie is supposed to be kind of like deconstructing Starfleet and the Federation, and what it would do to people psychologically if they were constantly going on adventure after adventure with no break in between and that sort of thing. When he says like, let's deconstruct the Federation, I kind of feel like Darkness tried to do that to a degree. And so so it'll be interesting to see what new we bring to the table with that. Important to talk about those things because Star Trek 09 didn't even define the Federation. Right. And if you didn't know anything about Star Trek, you wouldn't even know what they were for.
Yeah, exactly.
You get the superficial line from Pike, they were a peacekeeping organization. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't... That's true, I didn't even think about that.
But it's interesting because that teaser... And then the new trailer, the full trailer doesn't really give you any sense of when the Enterprise gets blown up or even that's definitely what happens. But Kirk in that teaser says we have no ship, so you have to assume that's what happened. And it's Star Trek 3, so we have to blow up the ship because it's Star Trek 3.
Right.
but
and it looks like they wind up on some weird alien ship, so just like
Star Trek 3. It's really cool. Yeah. Well, I mean. So we're going to do that thing, it looks like, right, where we're kind of going back to the movie that lines up with our movie and doing stuff again.
Yeah.
But at least you know that the impetus that gets things started isn't the same because Kirk is not dead anymore and we're not going to try to rescue him.
Oh, yeah.
So at least the crux of it is different. But I wonder what that first act is going to look like because we know we start at Earth because there's that line about going back out there. So I wish we were in the middle of the 5-year mission.
Right.
Somebody sent me a message at some point and told me that it's confirmed that it's definitely like 2 years into the 5-year mission. I don't know if that's true or not. But if that's the case, it's kind of weird that you'd come back to Earth and then you'd have an option to go back out. It's like, well, it's a 5-year mission, so like, why would the line, do you want to go back? Like, why would that come up? Like, it just seems like maybe we came back for a breather and then we're going to go out again. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wish this movie opened more like Darkness did, actually, where we're like in the middle of a mission. And then,
Except
stuff
the
happens.
Enterprise being underwater, that was ridiculous.
No, I'm with you. I just mean that we're out there already,
exactly.
Because you could end up with some padded downtime that ends up being kind of pointless.
Right.
Or you could need to be in that particular setting for the initial setup for Kirk's character arc, with the whole question of what is his identity apart from his father's, which could be really superficial and could be interesting. I don't know. But if we destroy the ship early, like, do you get all that done in the first act? Or you like on Earth, you leave, and then you blow up the ship all in the first act? It'd be cool if we get that much done. I don't know.
I'm not sure how they would do that.
But I guess we'll see. It's just, we know enough about it that I feel like I can speculate about some of that stuff. The villain has the potential to be exactly as two-dimensional and run-of-the-mill and carbon copy as kind of the last two were. I mean, I like even their Khan more than I like Nero because there's nothing to that guy.
Right.
But Khan, compared to the other Khan, is a really watered-down version. Right. Cumberbatch's great, but the character. We know this is another guy with a revenge motive. Must we do that every time? Apparently, according to, again, Justin Lin, in an interview I read, it's this guy has some kind of vendetta against the Federation and what they stand for, and so it's some alien group going against the idea of, I guess, exploration and teamwork. It sounds like.
Maybe he doesn't like that they have no money. Though we don't even know if they do that in this universe. I don't know.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it sure doesn't seem like it. It looks like a pretty 21st century, 23rd century.
Right.
But anyway, so I mean, like
that guy
guy
saw Nokia in the first
We did.
Or in Budweiser.
Yes. Yeah. So apparently those
things survived.
Some of those companies.
World War III.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. Apparently, that means that those things were there in Enterprise.
Oh.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because Enterprise remains
so
the only thing canon if you look at this as a pave over.
Right.
And I think it'll be really interesting when that new series comes out, because then Enterprise isn't part of that series. Like if you think about it, because, well, look, it can't be. They're Khan, completely different character.
Right.
So history before what Nero changed was also different in that universe.
Right.
They went back in time and to another timeline. Like, the movies aren't coming out and saying that. Now, again,
Right.
the IDW comics do. They're not canon, but in order to make stories work in that series, they felt the need to come out and say that. So
at least the Enterprise wasn't canon in those comics?
well, it's something akin to Enterprise, probably. But all I'm saying is, you're talking about two separate timelines now.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, yeah. So I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Because if we go back to Prime,
right.
in this new series, then we didn't go back and pave over. So that means that now it's got to include destruction of Romulus if they ever go forward.
Right.
Otherwise, that kills the whole thing. Yeah, but after Romulus blows up, then when Spot Prime goes back in time, he has to go to another universe.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't do more in Prime unless you say that you're doing stories, and they might say this, or they might not even bother with it.
Yeah.
But you could say that you're doing stories in the universe before it was rebooted.
Oh.
You could do that. And then what you would be doing is you would have this is loopy. You'd have a reboot,
right?
And then you would be telling stories in the previous continuity that you rebooted simultaneously.
Right.
I hope that at some point we just straight up say these are two diverging universes, and not to put one above the other, just because it's less confusing that way. That'd be nice. I can enjoy both.
Right.
That, and again, I can enjoy this a lot more if I have something more akin to what I like for Star Trek. This is my personal take. Yeah. But anyway, so I think that villain could end up being another big letdown. Once again, got a big actor that a lot of people like, Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Everybody's Justin Lin, other people working on the project saying, we got Idris Elba, isn't that great? I'm like, yeah, but we did this with the other two. We're getting a really good bad guy actor to play kind of a nothing role.
Right.
Khan less so, but still.
Right. I thought his makeup kind of looks pretty cheesy too. I mean, it looks like
a little bit, and it's got the red eyes. It's got the beady red eyes.
Looks like they got it from leftover stuff from the '90s, like Deep Space Nine or something.
I'm with you. Yeah, he looks like a hodgepodge of DS9 aliens. Yeah. He does. He's got a little bit of Jim Adar in him.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, anybody that's ever had red beady eyes. I know we've had that in a couple places. Right. And also he looks like a couple. You know what he is? He's a Jim Hadar crossed with a Herosian.
Oh.
That's what he is. With beady red eyes.
With beady eyes.
Yeah. But he could have a really interesting argument and come from a place and not have a really shoved in, rushed, backstory and villain motivation. But I still would love to see one of these that has a different sort of threat or antagonist.
Right.
It's not that again.
Right. I don't even remember in 2009, why did Nero blame the Federation for that star-going supernova? What was the reason?
Because they didn't do enough to help stop it.
Okay.
Which kind of puts them in the position of police of the galaxy, and you're kind of giving them that role. Like, Romulus has always
never
been...
wanted our help before, but now you want it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, importantly, he wasn't a planetary leader or anything. He wasn't on the Senate. He was a minor.
A minor, which... He had a giant ship with a ton of weapons.
Yeah. Well, same thing with Shinzon. I mean, you can compare him and Shinzon all day long, which is absolutely hilarious. But if you really look at his motivation, it's really super flimsy. And again, I've reviewed this. There was a comic series that attempted to flesh that out and make it more sense. Make it make more sense. Did a little bit. it also made it worse in some ways. Yeah, because it at least gave him a little bit more of a reason to hate Spock specifically, but it's still, I don't know, it still didn't quite work. So anyway, I don't know. It's just, I don't need another villain with a revenge motivation, but it could be. But it could be more interesting. I mean, I say revenge motivation again from that interview. We know that he has some vendetta against the Federation. That sounds like a revenge plot to me.
Right.
And I kind of hope that it's not a bad guy that lures the Enterprise to that planet, but I kind of suspect that's what it'll be.
Happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a trap.
Couple of lines in that trailer that I didn't talk about on my video on my other video that perplexed me a little bit, and we don't have the context for them.
Right.
So, who knows? I'm just throwing this out there. But one of them was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm glad to have somebody to talk this out with, which is part of the reason I didn't bring it up when I was flying solo. Spock says in that trailer, and it sounds like a really random line to me that we didn't think out maybe, says that the fear of death is illogical. That seems completely contrary to his creating the Kobayashi Maru in the first movie. I thought the whole point was that you're supposed to have a fear of death.
Right.
And that the reason he didn't think Kirk should be in Starfleet at all was because he was too cocky and not and didn't think anything could hurt him.
Right.
What happens between those movies that makes him say the fear of death is illogical?
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means.
It might end up making sense in context, but that one was odd. I also thought Uhura saying our captain is coming and mercy will be the last thing on his mind.
I don't know what that means either, yeah.
Okay. Is he gonna be Janeway and Equinox? What?
I guess so. He's gonna put someone in an airlock and open the door.
Again, in context, it might make sense. Those were things that gave me pause. I'm just throwing that out there. Anything that you're kind of expecting to see or expecting not to see?
Expecting to see,
good or bad? Good
or bad? I don't know, honestly. Like, as far as what we've seen so far in this trailer.
I think just from what they're showing us, they're at least trying to make us think that McCoy is going to get more screen time than he ever has. And that maybe they're putting the real triad kind of together.
Oh, really?
Is the sense I get from it. Part of that I'm saying because of this other article I found that on Entertainment Weekly that Carl Urban apparently originally wasn't, and I don't know how many of them were contractually obligated to come back and how many of them weren't. I know that there was some renegotiation at one point after Darkness, but Carl Urban didn't have to come back if he didn't want to, and claims, and you hear this kind of thing all the time, but he claims that he sat down with Justin Lin, and Justin Lin convinced him to come back. And that, like, he was excited enough about what Justin Lin was talking about that he came back to it. And it's possible that Justin Lin was just really convincing. But it might be that they planned on giving him a lot more to do. Is what I'm thinking.
That could be it, yeah.
Apparently the idea was that he had another project that he had two offers. He could have done Star Trek or some other project.
Okay.
And he couldn't do them both at the same time, and so he ended up picking Star Trek. And I just wonder if maybe finally we'll get something closer to
the original dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And you're also not seeing a ton of Spock. And it makes me think if he might be a little bit more reeled back, or if they just want us to think that. Because again, you can never tell.
Yeah, I didn't notice that in the trailer.
I'm just saying they're not selling it on him like they did.
Yeah, like they did the last one.
The last two, yeah.
Last two.
Mm-hmm. Especially 09, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, might that, I mean, and of course they're putting Uhura again less front and center, but still up there just because she's the girl. I mean, they're naturally, they feel like they got to do that. But maybe we'll get that old dynamic back a little bit.
Right.
That's a thing that I'm kind of hoping for. I also think that inevitably Scotty will play a big role.
Right. I'd like to see them bring back some other characters from the original series, like Nurse Chapel or
I would too,
Janice
yeah.
Rand or somebody. Just because they only have one woman in the whole series.
Yeah, and it would just be kind of neat to see their take on those characters.
Right, exactly.
On the other hand, I don't want them to do too many ladies if they don't know how to write them.
Right.
That's a thing.
They do what they did to Carol Marcus.
Yeah, because it just feels too much like guys trying to write women and expecting that women aren't seeing their Star Trek movie, which is silly. So anyway, what was I saying? But because Simon Pegg co-wrote the thing, inevitably Scotty's going to get a lot of screen time.
Right. Will that little guy be back that you think?
I'm sure.
What was that character's name?
I forget.
I always...
I don't know.
Just think the most random thing.
I think the Oompa Loompa is that man. That's what he's played by the same guy that played the Oompa Loompas in that remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, he was. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what's his name? Deep Roy. Isn't that Deep Roy? Pretty sure both of those are. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure both of those are Deep Roy. Yeah. And then okay, something else I wanted to bring up. This is weird. Apparently, Hewlett-Packard is going to have a whole bunch of product placement in this movie. Have you heard about this?
What?
And that they have some kind of like new technology they've been touting up really hard the last couple of years. That's like a new way to store information and stuff. And they want to throw that all over the movie. And I'm like, this is a thing set in the 23rd century.
Yeah.
You want to be careful that you're not treating a thing as being super futuristic that you're going to put on the market in a year or two. What?
Well, and it just makes me mad in principle that they're doing a lot of product placement and because before the only product placement in the old movies that I can think of was the Macintosh in Star Trek 4, which made sense because it was 1986.
Which I didn't even see as product placement because that's what they would be using.
That's what they're using back then.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And then I guess in Star Trek 5, Kirk was wearing Levi's or something.
Oh,
when he was doing his mountain
and that's silly. But no, you're right. Just the principle of the thing, and not for any, for my part, not for any political reason or for like the sake of like what Star Trek is all about. Just. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Like
something from today,
I guess
the technology of the future.
That's the big one, and I guess if this world is keeping a lot of like current companies around and somehow or rather still having something like the Roddenberry Utopia, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main thing. Is that you don't want to make a Star Trek movie seem too much just like a throwaway piece of entertainment that's for this weekend. I realize that like we're always extrapolating from now, but you have to extrapolate ahead more than a couple of years.
Right.
Like at that point, you're not even trying, and you're right. It is just like too overt commercialism in a Star Trek movie. I don't know. I don't really care for that. I mean, like, I could be okay with certain kinds of product placement. I just think it's really silly to be like, this futuristic technology that you're going to be using pretty soon. It's
going to be like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where half the brands they had in that movie, but that wasn't even product placement. That was just stuff that Stanley Kubrick thought would be around, and like all that stuff's
so
not around, like
Pan
Am and Howard Johnson and things like that.
Yeah, because you can do it in a science fiction social commentary sort of way. You can do it like what is that movie? It's on the tip of my tongue. That made Taco Bell all the restaurants.
Oh, that was
Demolition Man. Yeah,
that was
like.
fun.
You know what? It's hilarious, and it ended up being product placement in the sense that, like, obviously, Taco Bell had to sign off on that, and Taco Bell's all over their movie. Yeah. But it's also. But it was also this social commentary thing about like forcing everyone to eat a certain way and stuff so there was something to that. That's great, but I don't know. That sounds silly.
But yeah, like with 2001, all those companies you picked don't exist anymore. So that's like if we have who knows in the future if this would even be
it's a risk, y'all.
And that was only like 30 years in the future.
And I suppose the risk that you take when you and then when you say that it sounds worse, but I guess the risk that you take is that you're dating your film too much, so that it will be distracting if somebody tries to watch it 20 or 30 years from now. Science fiction isn't the Weather Channel.
Right.
Like, it's not all about predicting exactly what you think is going to happen. It's impressive when you do that, but the point is to answer the what-if statement and try to make a guess, but in an interesting and hopefully kind of character-driven way, or at least idea-driven way. But anyway, those are the main things I wanted to bring up. Like I said, going forward from that movie, I think there's a really good chance that we at least for the next few years live in a world where there's a Star Trek movie universe and a Star Trek TV show universe. Yeah.
So it's going to be like separate continuities like DC and not all one thing like Marvel.
Except that
it really is kind of one thing if you get technical about it. But
it's a little bit more like the CW DC universe where they have a multiverse.
Okay, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it is technically the same continuity, but they have different separate universes because with this we spun one out of another one.
Right. Like
so they are
Supergirl.
Connected. In a way that, say, Gotham is not connected to Supergirl.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Right.
Because that one is not in that multiverse. Although they should totally rope that in because that would be hilarious.
That would be insane.
It would be insane. Anyway, anything else you wanted to bring up?
Nothing I can think of about it.
Okay, I'm sure we'll turn this off and I'll think of something else that we should have been talking about. But is it a thing you're excited about?
I think so. Maybe I'm
more so than a couple months ago.
More so than a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I guess. But still, I'm just like at this point, I'm like, I'll wait and see. I'm not gonna get too worked up about it one way or another.
You know what doesn't bother me right now as much as it did when it was announced? I think Justin Lin might be okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna throw that out there. Because obviously I was like, well, the Fast and the Furious guy isn't the guy for it. But he seems in interviews, and you don't know. But he seems in interviews to get and know more about Star Trek than Orson Kurtzman did, and than J.J. Abrams did. Like the way he talks about it, it's like it's one of his favorite things, and he's so stoked to get to work on it. And other people that have worked on this on this particular franchise have certainly said that. But he seems to kind of mean he seems to be a guy, and you can't begrudge Abrams because he was a guy brought in and hired to do a job.
Exactly.
And he made no bones about the fact that he was more of a Star Wars person than a Star Trek person. He simply was not, in my opinion, quite the guy for the job. I liked the aesthetic he created, and I liked things about his directing. But as far as understanding what Star Trek is about and liking it and being it, he wasn't really the guy. But Justin Lin, and they're building on the action thing, and even though they're talking about it like they're not really gonna deal with darkness or anything in darkness, it still is very much obviously the
fallout from that,
or just the feel of the world that they've got there. I don't think they're gonna. Clearly, when you look at the footage that we've seen so far, they're not reinventing the wheel.
Right.
It looks like Star Trek 09.
Right.
And it looks like it's trying to bookend 09 and get, maybe, it's almost like they're trying to get back to that and forget about darkness. It's like they don't want to forget about 09, but they want to forget about darkness.
Right.
Is kind of the sense I get from it. But Justin Lin sounds like a Star Trek fan that grew up with Trek like you and I were. Which I'm a little bit surprised by. And just because that guy has made a career directing the Fast and the Furious movies doesn't mean that he doesn't get the material or understand real science fiction. We've had directors. You look at the Russos with Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War, and those were guys that did sitcoms and stuff that never worked on a movie or a big budget movie or an action thing, and they made a killer suspense thriller, an espionage thriller with Winter Soldier, because they were fans of that. And just because you're a fan of it doesn't mean you know how to make one.
Right, exactly.
But they approached that in an academic way, and I'm not saying Justin Lin's going to approach Star Trek in an academic way.
Right.
But and he clearly was brought in because he was an action director. But I think we might have gotten lucky that he also just happens to be a big Star Trek fan, and maybe before this even sort of closeted Star Trek fan. I don't know. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're like that wasn't a thing. I don't think. My point is, I don't think Paramount knew that about him. I think they went to him because he was an action director, and because they had success with him before with Fast and Furious.
Have you seen any other stuff he's done besides Fast and Furious?
I haven't. Have you?
I haven't either. So that's why
I don't know.
So it's hard to judge if we don't.
And I can't judge.
Right.
But I appreciate the fact that he seems to actually be a Star Trek fan.
Right.
That's
Right.
That doesn't mean he'll make a good movie.
Right. But it doesn't mean he'll make a bad movie either just because he made the Fast and the Furious movie.
Precisely the point I'm making is that it's not fair to make that leap and say just because he's made schlocky, just bang him up. Actually, I've never watched one of those because I don't care.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that he won't.
Right.
And New Blood could be good.
Right. Definitely.
He's not going to come in and try to make it look like Star Wars. There's no reason to do that now. We have Star Wars.
Star Wars,
yeah. Anyway, I guess that's the other thing I wanted to bring up. Everybody, thanks always for watching. We sure appreciate it. Thanks for joining me, sir.
No problem.
And we'll see you again sometime in the not-too-distant future to talk more Star Trek. And feel free to leave comments and not only tell us what you think about anything we said here, and if you're excited for anticipating Star Trek Beyond and the new Star Trek series next year, but also if you want to ask us any questions to answer here on the show for Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Adam.
And we'll see you next time.